Hey CodeCrew, welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to take an existing SwiftUI app and to add in-app purchases to it using RevenueCat. I built a meditation demo app, and in this 4-part SwiftUI series, I'm going to show you how to process one-time purchases, how to do subscriptions, how to show different offers to the user, and finally, how to analyze your metrics so that you can make informed decisions based off of your data. And yes, I've done this with UIKit before, but many of you have asked how to use RevenueCat with a SwiftUI app. And since we're doing a ton of SwiftUI content right now, this is perfect timing. All right, so let's take a look at this meditation app. You can select the meditation that you want, you can listen to a sample, and you can purchase the individual meditation. And yes, as I said in this 4-part series, you will learn how to do subscriptions, but the focus of this video is to show you how easy it is to get up and running with processing transactions. So that's why in this lesson, we're only going to focus on the one-time purchase. There are just 4 simple steps. Number 1, we're going to create our App Store listing. Number 2, we're going to create the in-app purchase. And number 3, we're going to sign up for RevenueCat and set it up. And number 4, we're going to process the purchase. Now, even if you didn't use RevenueCat, you'd still have to do steps 1 and 2. And the last 2 steps are just made simple with RevenueCat. I'll walk you through it. All right, if you're pumped to do this, let's give this video a thumbs up and let's dive right in. First, I'll walk you through the demo that I've built. Now, since the focus of this video is on how to integrate in-app purchases, I'm not going to show you how I built this, but I am open to it. So if that's something that you'd like to see, just leave me a quick comment below. And if enough people leave me comments to say that they want to do it, I will record a follow-up video on how I built this demo. Alright, so rather diving into the code and trying to explain how everything fits together, I thought a nice, neat little diagram would do a better job of that. Let's start all the way at the left where we see meditation. This is our model. It models a single meditation. This one contains all of the properties that we would need for the meditation, such as the title, the description, the name of the image asset that we should show for this meditation, as well as the product ID that corresponds to the in-app purchase that we configure in App Store Connect. Furthermore, I have some test data for this demo, so the data isn't coming from a JSON file or a database or anything like that, it's just hard-coded test data. So next up, we have the featured view and the meditation model. So the featured view is basically the home screen where you saw all of those colorful cards representing the meditations. It's a scroll view actually. So that view is powered by the meditation model, which is essentially the view model of our app. This meditation model gets the test data, which is an array of 4 meditations. And then this meditation model is set as the environment object for the featured view. Now, because the meditation model is set as an environment object, that means that any subview of the featured view, such as the card and the detailed view, also have access to that meditation model. And that's why you see that white square surrounding the featured view as well as all of its subviews, the card and the detailed view, indicating that all of those views have access to the meditation model. So now let's talk about the card view. Each card view represents one of those meditation cards in the scrollable scroll view in the featured view. When the user taps on one of those cards, it brings up the detailed view, and this is where you can see the details for the meditation as well as play a sample audio clip as well as purchase the meditation. When the user taps on that buy button in the detailed view, it calls a method in the meditation model called make purchase. And in that method, the meditation model uses the purchase service to actually carry out the transaction. If the transaction was successful, then we update a dictionary inside of the meditation model that keeps track of which meditations the user has purchased or not. Once that dictionary is updated, all of the views, the featured view, the cards, the detailed view, all of them get notified that a purchase has been made and the UI updates accordingly. Now, right now, inside of the purchase service, the code for processing transactions hasn't been written yet. That's what we're going to do together in step 4, processing purchases. Now, while keeping all of this in mind, let's jump back to Xcode and I'll show you the bits of code that we just talked about. Let's start with the meditation model, just like we did with the diagram. So here we've got those properties that I mentioned: title, description, image name, which corresponds to the asset name that we have in here. And we also have the product ID, which corresponds to the product ID of the in-app purchase that we configure inside App Store Connect, which we'll do together in step 2. All right, now let's go over to the meditation model, which powers all of our views. So as you can see here, when it's initialized, it grabs a set of test data and assigns it to the meditations property. Now this array represents the list of scrollable cards. Furthermore, here's that dictionary I mentioned, which keeps track of which meditations the user has purchased. Again, this is a demo, so we're just keeping it in a dictionary. Now let's jump over to the featured view. This is that scroll view of the different cards. So a card is simply one of these, represents a single meditation. When a card is tapped on in the featured view, you can see that they're actually buttons. What happens is that we present a detail view. So the detail view looks like this, with a button to play an audio sample and a buy button. When the user taps on this buy button, it calls the meditation model.makePurchase method. So if we go to that method right here, you can see it uses the purchase service purchase method to process the transaction, and it passes in a block of code to run if that transaction was successful. So this block of code, all that does is it updates this dictionary to say that the user has successfully made that purchase. Now if we go into the purchase service into this method, you'll see that the code has not been written here. We are actually going to implement purchases using RevenueCat. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how this demo is structured and what we have so far. All right, now that we've walked through the app, we're ready to integrate in-app purchases. First thing we want to do is go over to this root project node here, go over to signing and capabilities, and take note of this bundle identifier because we're going to need that to create our App Store listing. But on this screen, I also want to make sure that you have the in-app purchases capability. If you don't have this, you don't see this here, let me just show you how to add it. Click this little plus icon up here, search for it, and just double click it and add it. Then press Command B on your keyboard to build this project to make sure it still builds. And then we're going to go over to App Store Connect. Now this portal you only get access to if you have a paid Apple developer account, and if you want to submit apps to the App Store and collect payment from users, you're going to have to join the Apple developer program. Once you get access to this App Store Connect portal, one of the first things you want to make sure you have is under Agreements, Tax, and Banking. You want to make sure that you've signed your paid apps agreement and that the status is active. Because if there's some problem with this, if this is a yellow icon or a red icon, you're not going to be able to fetch and retrieve your in-app purchases for your app, and you're going to scratch your head wondering why it doesn't really tell you that this is what you need to have active first. So make sure that this is green, lit, and active under your paid apps, and you're good to go. Let's go back to App Store Connect's dashboard and let's add our new project as an app. So I'm going to click this blue icon here and I'm going to add a new app. It's going to be iOS. I'm going to call this Calm Mind Demo 2 because this is the second time I'm doing this. Primary language for me at least is English, and here you're going to choose the bundle ID for your project. Do I see it here? No. Wait, I do. com.codewithchris.com-mind2. So that's what I have here. Now, if you don't see yours here on this list, that's okay. There's just one extra step for you. Let me just cancel out of this menu and show you again. If you don't see your bundle ID in this list, then you're going to go ahead and click Certificates, Identifiers, and Profiles. And this is another portal that you will have access to with a paid developer account. This link doesn't really work because it says register undefined. So you're going to want to hit back by clicking all identifiers and then go ahead and click this blue button to add a new identifier. it should be an app ID. Select the type as app. And here under bundle ID, explicitly add this bundle identifier right here. And then put a description and scroll down to capabilities and make sure that in-app purchase is enabled. And then go ahead, click continue and create it. And then after that, you can go back to App Store Connect, refresh the page, try to add your app again, and it should be in this drop down here. So I'm just gonna go through those steps again. Command demo 2, English, Command 2, and user access should be full. This is just for your own management of your App Store Connect portal if you have multiple users managing your dashboard. I'm going to click create. Give it a little bit of time and then you will have had your new App Store listing created. There we go. All right, now for step 2, adding our in-app purchase. It's actually pretty easy to add an in-app purchase for one-app purchases. All you have to do is go down to manage in-app purchases down here. Wait for this slow portal to load. All right, so here we see in-app purchases at 0. Let's click on this little plus icon to add our first one. Here you'll read about a couple of different types. We are going to add a one-time purchase that is non-consumable, meaning that once you purchase it, you'll have it forever. So perfect for unlocking books, unlocking meditations in our case, and generally opening up extra features or content that the user will have forever from this point on. So let's choose non-consumable and click create. And here we have a couple of different things we can add. So for reference name, this reference name is just internally for us. It's going to be used in our reporting, sales and trends reports and stuff like that. So I'm just going to call this Calm Mind. Which meditation do I want us to buy? I'm not going to do all of them because they're basically all the same. I'll choose reflect. And the product ID should basically match what we have here, or the other way around. What we have here should match what we put here. So whatever we put as the product ID for this in-app purchase, inside of our data source, wherever that might be, the database, a JSON file, or in our case, dummy data, these product IDs should match it. Because when we try to make this purchase, we have to reference this product ID. Cleared for sale, we can check this. This means that when it gets approved, because these things get reviewed, when it gets approved, it's automatically going to be available for sale. If you don't want that to happen, maybe you're saving it for a later date, then just uncheck that. Okay, so for pricing, I'm just going to make these tier 1. It's just going to be $1.39 Canadian. And localizations, if you want to localize for other languages, you would add additional languages here. For me, it's just English. So I'm going to put reflect meditation. I'm just going to put the same thing for both. Or, you know what? Yeah, I'll put the same thing for both. This is optional. For this review information, you actually have to put a sample screenshot here. So let's click this. Yeah, it's just for their review. So essentially you want to put a screenshot of how it looks in your app, but since this is just testing for us, we're going to put just a blank image. I'm coming to this documentation to show you what sort of dimensions that image should be. Under here, app review screenshot, you can see that it should be 640 by 920. So I just went into my graphics software. I use Figma and I generated a blank image exactly of that size. So that's what I'm going to upload here. App review placeholder. And as you can see, it's not that one. I guess I'll have to create a brand new one. So no matter. Let's go to Figma. This will be good to show you anyways. I'm going to go into my drafts. Let's click on plus. And I will create a new one. I'll just grab that and say, what was it? 640 by 920. Let's double check that. 640 by 920, that's right. And I will just draw a rectangle, sure, make it gray, and then I will export this image. I'll make it a JPEG and export this as placeholder. And then I will go back here. I'll choose that file and upload that. And that's it. So let's hit save, and then we can begin testing with this in-app purchase and trying to buy it. Okay, so the status, if you go back to in-app purchases right here, the status needs to be ready to submit. It hasn't actually been reviewed yet. When we actually launch this app into production, we're going to want to submit a description for this in-app purchase and the actual screenshot, and then submit it for approval. But in this status, ready to submit, we will be able to retrieve it and try to test with it. All right, so now we have our App Store listing. We have created an in-app purchase that we can test buying. The next step is to create a RevenueCat account and then start processing our transactions. All right, to create your free RevenueCat account, just open a new browser window, go to codewithchris.com/rcat, and that's going to bring you to RevenueCat.com. And by going through that URL, you're letting the team know at RevenueCat that you, as a CodeWithChris audience member, want to see more in-app purchase content from them. So they're going to sponsor more content in the future for us. I don't get compensated for any accounts created or anything like that. So if you go ahead and do that, thank you so much for helping support the channel. All right, you're going to click try for free, and then you're going to create an account. But for me, I already have an account created, so it brings me directly into here. Once you're inside this dashboard, what you're going to want to do is click add app. I already created a few test ones, but I'm going to create a brand new one. So the app name is going to be, I'll call this Calm Mind 2, and the app bundle ID goes back to this right here. And this is something that you'll have to add. This basically lets RevenueCat fetch the in-app purchase information from App Store Connect. So we're going to go back to our App Store Connect. Under Manage in-app purchases for your app, there is a link here, App Specific Shared Secret. So click that and generate a new one. And then you're going to want to copy this string right here, click Done, and then you're going to want to add that string right there. And then let's go ahead and click Add. And that's it. We've set up our new app within RevenueCat. Now, there are a lot of different features here, but we're just going to go through what we need in order to process a in-app purchase. So under Products, we're going to add the in-app purchase that we created inside App Store Connect. Click New, and then let's give it the identifier that we put for this in-app purchase. So that is just reflect. So I'm going to copy that and paste that right there. And I'm going to say that this is for the App Store and click Add. Now there's a lot more power and flexibility if we configure our entitlements and offerings, but those things are going to be great when we do in-app subscriptions, which I'll show you. For now, we're just going to stick with adding this one product because I want to show you how easy it is just to get up and running with processing transactions. So now we're going to shift our focus over to Xcode. We're going to add the RevenueCat SDK, and then let's process a purchase. So we're going to first start by visiting the documentation. In the upper right hand corner of your account, you can see this docs link. Go ahead and click that. It's going to jump you straight to all of the documentation. Let's click on installation and click on iOS. Now, one of the ways you can install the SDK is using Cocoapods. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. Let's go ahead and open up Terminal. And actually, before we do that, let's close the Xcode project and let's navigate to our project folder. So I've got it saved on my desktop. So I'm going to go there, and the project is called Calm Mind. So I actually created a copy. So I'm at my desktop now. So Calm Mind copy. All right, so now we're going to do pod init, and that is going to create a pod file in our folder, and we can say open pod file, and then here we can follow these instructions and add this pod in our pod file. Let's go ahead and save that, close it, and go back here and do a pod install. Now, if you get any sort of errors, take note of the error message in there, because usually it'll tell you what's out of date or what command you need to run. You might need to do a pod repo update, or maybe you need to reinstall and update Cocoapods instead. So it'll usually tell you what command you need to run if you encounter any errors. All right, so now that we've done that, we have an XC workspace file. So let's go ahead and open that. So open calmmind.xc workspace. All right, let's press Command B, and let's just build that, make sure everything looks good. While that builds, let's take a look at the documentation here. So under making purchases, actually, we're not finished configuring the installation part yet. So if you go back all the way down here, there's a part that says you have to import purchases, and then you also have to initialize the purchases instance in your app. So if you follow that link, you can see here in Swift, in this did finish launching with options, you're going to want to run or have these two lines of code, right? Enable debugging so that it makes your testing easier, and then also to configure the instance with your API key so it can connect to your instance of RevenueCat. Now in SwiftUI, we don't have an app delegate, right? But that's not going to stop us. Okay, so this built successfully. Let's go to our entry point here. So what we can do is we can have an init method in here, which gets called automatically when this app is initialized. So this is where we want to put those two lines of code. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to put that here. Okay, and we're going to replace this SDK key with this under API keys. We're just going to copy that for our app, and we're going to put that right there. Oh, and don't forget at the top, you have to import the purchases framework. Okay, let's press Command B again and build this. Make sure everything's running okay. And now the last thing we have to do is actually just run the code to process the purchase. Let's jump on over to helper, and I've actually set up a class where we're going to write this code called purchase service. All right, so before I implement this method, I want to remind you about where this is being called. So let's go back to our detail view here, and you're going to see the buy button as soon as the preview is loaded. And it's essentially this buy button that when tapped is triggering this method model.makePurchase, and it's passing in the meditation to purchase. So let's follow this method and see where that leads us. This leads us to our view model, and this method actually calls our purchase service.purchase. And I created this purchase service because I wanted to keep all of the transaction code in one class, and that's why I did that. So this is going to call the purchase method, and it's going to pass in the product ID to purchase, which matches, the product ID right here. And it also passes in a block of code to run if the purchase is successful. And so this block of code is essentially just updating this user purchases property, which in turn will, because it's being observed by this detail view, it's going to know that the purchase was successful, and then it's going to remove the buy button, and that play sample is going to turn to play. So that's essentially what is happening. All right, let's go back to the purchase service and the purchase method, and we are going to perform the purchase. So this is actually two different steps, because given the product ID, we're going to have to retrieve the store kit product object. and then that is the object that we use to purchase. So first, get the SK product, right? And for this, we can use the purchases framework from RevenueCat. Let's get the shared instance, and we're gonna look for that product ID. So it's got a method here where we can pass in an array of string product IDs, and it's going to return to us all of the SK products. So see, fetches the SK products for your in-app purchases given product identifiers. All right, so let's do that, and we're gonna pass in just our single product ID. Now I'm going to force unwrap this. You'll notice that it's passed in as an optional string, but here I have this guard statement to guard that it's not nil. So here I can safely force unwrap it. And then as for the completion block, it's going to pass back an array of SK products for us. So I'm going to call this, let's just call this products. So I'm going to say if products is empty. So if it's not empty, then I'm going to say let SK product equal products, the first one there. And now that we've retrieved the SK product, we can actually purchase it. So here again, RevenueCat makes it really easy with the purchases framework. So purchases.shared to get the instance, and then let's call purchase product. So this method lets us pass in the SK product to purchase and then gives us a completion block for the result. So first let's pass in our SK product there, and let's double click this to open up a new closure. It's got several parameters here. So the first one is going to be the transaction, and each of these parameters contains different bits of data about the transaction. Purchaser info, the next one is error, and this next one is Boolean, and this one indicates whether or not the user has canceled the purchase. So you know when it pops up and it says if you want to purchase it, if the user just cancels out of it, then this is going to be true. So here inside this block I can say if error is nil, that means there's no errors and not user canceled, then successful purchase. And I'm going to run that block of code that was passed in. That should only be run when a purchase is successful. So successful purchase. So that's basically it. Now we cannot test this in the simulator. If you try this in the simulator, it's going to tell you in the debug code in the console area that it wasn't able to fetch the store kit products. So let me just quickly do that so that you can see. What you have to do actually is plug in an actual device and then deploy your app there and do it that way. So you're going to tap on this and tap on buy. You're going to see that it's requesting products with this identifier ambition, because I shouldn't have tried to buy this one because we only have one product in this store called Reflect. So I actually should have gone to this one and tried to buy this one. But either way, trying to do this in the simulator is going to give you this SK request failed unknown error. It's not going to be able to fetch it. So why don't we plug in my iPhone now and try this on an actual device. All right, so I've got my phone plugged in. You can see the screen right here. And let's try to deploy this onto my phone. All right, let's do that. All right, cool. So why don't we scroll down to reflection and tap that, and I'm going to hit buy. Now you should see something like that. If you've never done this before, you're going to see a pop-up asking you to log in as a test user to perform this test purchase. Here's how you're going to create that test user if you haven't done this before. You go into App Store Connect, go down to users and access, and then you're going to go down to sandbox testers down here, and then you're going to create a new sandbox Apple ID. So it's going to have an email, it's going to have a password, And after you create that sandbox account, you're going to come back here and you're going to enter in that sandbox account. And then you'll be able to do a test purchase. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and hit purchase on mine. And then you're going to be able to sign in with that account that you've created and make that purchase. All right, it's done. So wait for it. Okay, so you get this pop-up that says you're all set. And then you can see that our view automatically detected because the view model updated that user purchases property right here, updated this property saying that we've purchased this reflection meditation, and the detail view automatically re-rendered this version, the purchased version. Now that you've made your first test purchase, you can actually see the data in your RevenueCat account. Go over to Overview and then toggle this to View Sandbox Data. So these are all the test purchases you've done across all of the apps in your RevenueCat account. So all of the data is aggregated. If you scroll down, you can see that this transaction was the one that we just did. So that is pretty cool. If you click into this app user ID, you can even see some additional information. If this user made purchases over time, you'd see that here. Look at some of the cool data you can see. First seen using the app, last opened the app. Yeah, this is just really, really cool. Now to wrap things up, I want to do a quick recap of the 4 steps that we went through to get to this point. Number 1, you created an App Store listing for your app. Number 2, you configured the in-app purchase in App Store Connect. Number 3, you created a RevenueCat account, added this app, and added that in-app purchase. Number 4, you added the RevenueCat SDK into your Xcode project with Cocoapods. You initialized the purchases framework at the beginning of your app. And then when the user tapped on the buy button, you retrieved the SK product using the purchases framework. And then again, using the purchases framework, you processed the transaction for that purchase. So there you have it. In 4 easy steps, you are able to monetize your app and allow your user to purchase something from you. Remember, RevenueCat is free to use up until you're making $10,000 a month through your app. And even at that point where you're making so much money, it's only $120 a month. So I would definitely think about using it, especially at the beginning of your app when you're not sure if you're even going to make any revenue with it. It's going to save you a lot of time and headache. Just go to CodeWithChris.com/rcat to create your free account. And you're going to need it because in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to add in-app subscriptions. If you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on bell notifications. All right, I have a quick question for you. Is your goal for app development related to generating income? Let me know by leaving a quick comment below. And on your way down there, if you wouldn't mind, please give this video a quick thumbs up. It really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson.